I believe the idea came when I was looking for old hotels. I had set the Codebreaker's Secret, the Mauna Kea Beach Hotel, and I kind of there's so many historic hotels here, and so I was researching, just looking around, and I ended up coming across this story about her death at the Moana Hotel. And so that's what got me going. And then, I'm writing fiction. And so if I just told the story of Jane, it would have been nonfiction. And there's a lot of books written about her and her death. And so I just kind of started brainstorming on how I would create this other, 100 years later story. And I'm never quite sure how it comes together, but it does. It was quite surprising because I had never heard this before growing up in Hawaii. And my dad had gone to Stanford. And so, I knew a bit about Stanford. But so, yeah, Jane Stanford is the co-founder of Stanford University. And she was a very wealthy woman at that time. And her husband passed away. Now I can't remember, but it was before things really got rolling with the university. And so yeah, she is a very prominent figure in, the early history of the universities in our country. They said she had an iron will, and she was a very strong woman. And I think it was kind of this, they had lost their son to typhoid when he was, I think, 16 or almost 16. And he came to the father in a dream, Leland Stanford Sr., I think that night or the next night. And so it was sort of this son telling them that, asking him, I think, to start this university for the kids of California, the kids of America. And so they did. They was sort of like this, they were driven from then on, because it was a request from their deceased son in a way. So it was like a mission, a real mission to get this going. It opened in 1901, and it was the First Lady of Waikiki. At that point, there weren't really hotels in Waikiki. There are these big homes, some big homes, but so it was really, they were trying to get visitors and tourists to come to Honolulu, and they had the steamships, and so this was a great destination for them to come. And so became very popular very quickly. And this was actually she had been there once before, but in my book, this is her first visit and it was very much for wealthy travelers and Europeans and kind of the diplomats and important people in the world. I've heard stories over the years about the Moana being haunted, and a really crazy story from the woman who cuts my hair. But it was just, I thought it would be cool to have someone staying there, staying in the same hotel, staying in the same room, and what might transpire if this isn't indeed a haunted hotel. So it's subtle. It's not like a, full-on heavy-duty ghost story, but I love writers' retreats. And so kind of thought that would be a good way to weave it together, where we do end up finding out what happened to Jane. So in all my books, I usually have a love story as well. And so this one is no different. And I thought it would be kind of fun to have her there's a little bit of a history with her and the leaders of one of her groups, her workshops. And so that's who Dylan Winters is. He's a mystery writer. So what better person to help you uncover a mystery than a mystery writer? And so it was kind of fun to write him in. And then, I just have random little characters that she meets along the way and befriends, which is usually the case at a writer's conference. You always meet fascinating people, teachers and students. Yeah, I've been to quite a few. I think that these characters, they add a little flavor kind of just what, to the setting and the story. And they're also, you're able to kind of bounce off your main character, they can bring to light certain aspects of them that maybe you just don't want to be telling, you want to be showing. So these interactions, I think, help with that. And um, she befriends a woman, a younger woman. And I did want to kind of touch on too, like how really challenging it is in this day and age to get an agent, to get a publisher, to get a book deal. And everybody's there hoping to, you meet with the agents usually or editors, and everyone thinks that, whatever stage you're in, like when I first went to my writers, my first one in Santa Barbara, my first book that I had ever written, and I was like, okay, I'm ready, this book is ready. And then you quickly realize, like, okay, no, this book is not ready. And so I wanted to just portray that sort of in a realistic way.